Who knows where the cold wind blows? I asked myself, but nobody knows.
It is why I rise. This is our reach out to hug the community, both with people with Parkinson's and the people around them.
What I wanted to talk about, or what I thought was really important to discuss early on, is the importance of friends and the importance of community. And I think people throw the second word around a lot in today's world. Friends. I mean, excuse me, community this, community that. We're a community. But I was taken aback by a friend of mine who I hadn't talked in a while, but I invited him to the Parkinson's Wellness Fund golf tournament.
Okay.
And I sent him an email or a text. I think it was a text, and I didn't hear from him for a couple of days. Then all of a sudden, I started getting these like mysterious, like sound bites of music, like little audio clips. They were like all of maybe 10 seconds. And I'm like, who is sending me this stuff? And then somebody sent me, I'm all, Bob, did you send me this stuff? He's all, nope, I didn't send you any videos. And I'm like, oh, great. Somebody's hacked, his line or whatever. Then then another one came and it was music. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I finally just reached out to him and I said, hey, how you been? Haven't talked, we boxed together years ago, in the Parkinson's boxing class. Great guy. First guy to come and introduce himself to me. First guy to, say, hey, do you golf? Let's all go golfing together. I mean, and he had a lot of funny lines, like somebody would say something like, oh, I can't, that date is on a Saturday. And he would say, every day is a Saturday for me. I'm retired. And his greatest line, which I've quoted a bunch of times, is he said, when he was talking about Parkinson's, he said, Parkinson's is a exclusive club that none of us want to be in. And it's true. We need to look at it as an exclusive club. And I just heard from him the other day about the golf tournament. And he said, I don't golf that much anymore now that I moved into this. It's like a memory, like home. I don't know. I hate to use the term home, facility.
Okay.
So he's obviously living there now, and that hit me hard, because it's sort of like, I don't want to see any of these guys and ladies get to a point where we'll never see them again. And it was hard because when I started boxing, I was 50 years old when I started boxing, and I would be not sparring with each other, but we'd both be sharing a bag with a guy that was 90.
Oh, wow.
And he would box longer than me. And I guess what I missed the most about boxing at neuroboxing was the feeling that when I crossed that threshold to go over that door, or to go into the facility, I keep kicking I gotta stop kicking my camera. Sorry, everybody. I was a normal person. We were the normal people, because our caregivers or our wives or husbands, depending upon who it was that was dealing with the complaint, if you will, they were not normal. There was more of us than them, is the point I'm making. So it was this little false illusion of like, hey, we're the normal ones here, because there's more Parkinson's people than there are people without Parkinson's. And so when you start to lose folks for myriad reasons, and very few of them are truly from Parkinson's, you start to realize that the weight of something like this, like, we're all going to get there, Vin, but don't push us. Let's get there in our own time. That's what I thought this episode could be about. It's just the importance of friends, the importance of community. And I mean, we talked in the last episode about our friendship and how many years it has been. And that's seen many difficulties. I mean, illnesses for both my wife, heart for me, and Parkinson's for me, and cancer for my wife. And then, of course, the most unpleasant thing to roll off my tongue is the loss of your wife, Robin, to cancer.
Huge. And our friendship has seen, the friendship's always been solid. Our individual lives have crossed,
right.
And you've always been a really dear friend, and our wives were really, really close. And that part of that is how you get through it. And you're talking about the importance of friends and community and everything about what you do and what the foundation does with the golf tournament. And Just this alone, the fact that they sponsor us, I'm just deeply appreciative, and I hope we're reaching some people, because I do understand the community a little bit better now. I've tried to stay a little bit ignorant, for lack of a better word, so that I can learn things from you while we're taping.
Right.
And that represents other people who might not ask the question of the PWP in their life, but I know I can ask you anything.
Well, almost anything.
Almost
Uh,
that. I mean,
there's
I
some
guess
things there's some that are just sacred.
who
But
knows
no, I agree, because what I found to be totally interesting about it was, for the longest time, I kind of said it's not, this has got to be it's got to be a mistake. This ain't me.
Right, right.
I mean, but as that wore off and I started to realize that you should really start paying attention to this, and the people that you're around, you know, a little bird in my ear said, remember that you're influencing it, and you're influenced by the people you associate with. So the people that you have in your life are there for a very specific reason.
Absolutely.
And so when you start to realize that everybody comes to you at a specific time when you need it or when they need it, and you build friendships on just, crazy things. It's like, you have a friend that's like, yeah, I met him at the DMV once. If I hadn't got that parking ticket, I probably would have never been there. But, because I've never been to the DMV since. I do everything via mail, whatever it may be. But I'm just trying to make a silly statement. But the idea that when somebody is in your circle, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Uh, the guy I like to call the great Jimmy Choi, because I've had a chance to work out with Jimmy, and he's like, I'm an endurance athlete. I'm like, yeah, you punched the bag for like 6 minutes. I was done in 30. I'm like 30 seconds. And I'm like, I'm gonna get a drink of something because this guy's killing me, and just pouring down sweat. And he's very well known for being on American Ninja Warrior, I think like 6 times or something, some really amazing amount of time.
Wow.
And incredible support from his wife, and his daughter is a world class, I should say, all American type collegiate or a high school softball player, and is going to be going, I think, to like Cal Poly or something like that. Great school.
Right.
So, he came and worked out with me, and Jennifer, who ran neuroboxing, told me, she goes, I put you and Jimmy together so he could motivate you or whatever. And I was like, okay. And so we started chatting afterwards, and he said, so how, he made a little speech to the group, and that group was very much what, I mean, at me at 50 to 55, 53 years old, however it was before, the pandemic shut us down. And then Heidi and I moved, and we're there all the way down in like Woodland Hills. And then the other half of the group is all the way down in Calabasas. But he said, have you told everybody? And I said, well, I kind of did like a soft, kind of launch of letting everybody know. For the first 4 years, I was terrified. I told only the people that had to know,
Well,
because
you
go
say
ahead.
that's didn't you say you've discovered that's very common among people who it is common that their first reaction is to either not accept or just not tell. Am I getting
Both. I mean, it may very well be both. I mean, they're
right?
not going to accept that diagnosis, and then they're also not going to surely tell anybody, because now you go like, like I thought to myself, where it started to really affect me, and I started to notice it, was doing for those of you that didn't see the first episode, and you will hear stories along the way. Vinny and I have had a wonderful careers. Vinny for Universal Studios and Origin, and myself for working on feature films from the day I started as a PA on the Addams Family, and to be a producer for, to do behind the scenes of the making of movies for every major studio in Hollywood and then some.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the latter part of my career, I was, well, not actually, for half of my career, I was producing content, and I would fly all over the world and meet all those amazing people. And it would be a writer, director, producer, an actor. I mean, a visual effects guy, a studio executive, whoever needed to be a part of this pitch and this idea that I had to make a documentary, I would go after and get them. And they were wonderful. But I started to get nervous because I thought to myself, I can't know if I'm going to sit across from somebody and I'm starting to go like this, or
Hmm.
I'm doing this, if they're going to go, hey, can I take a break for a second? I check my makeup. And then all of a sudden they're going to go to the PR. What the hell is it going with this guy?
Well, you're the king of interviewing. So, I mean,
Right.
of course, you have your sights set on how you look, and if you're
Right.
yeah, and because that's a lot of your work was one-on-one interviews with some of the biggest stars and directors we have,
Oh,
and
yeah.
understand why you would get self-conscious if you were keeping it quiet, and then all of a sudden you started to move in a way that was alarming to somebody because they didn't know.
Yeah. And I'll share a interesting story with you. I'll try to keep it brief. I thought in the last episode I was a little long winded, but
I'll help you try to keep
I
it.
was flown to Florida, Miami, Florida, to do an interview with a director who directed a movie called Anaconda. And there was this great recording studio. I can't remember the name of it. They were so great, but he needed to do it on a Saturday because he was literally like, I think he lived in Panama and he flew up to Miami Beach, I guess, where it was, for me to do this interview. And excuse me, we did an audio commentary, which is he sits in the booth and watches a movie for 2 hours and talks about every aspect of it. And it's really something admirable that these directors and these writers and producers and actors can do because, I mean, to sit and be very descriptive and be very succinct because you're talking about a scene that's going to go by in 8 seconds, which might have taken you a month to direct.
Mhm.
So they've got all kinds of insight. They're like, well, this is a great scene. Yeah, okay. So he came in and I got there. I would always get there when it was an audio commentary. I usually got there an hour and a half to 2 hours early in case there was something wrong with the feature, because they were watching the feature and we're recording the
Right.
playback. So I get there and this young kid opens the door for me and he's like, "Are you Mr. Kenny?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, we got you upstairs in the break room for the time being, while your technician is um, getting set up. But you got Dave, or I don't know what the gentleman's name is, just super guy." And he goes, and so he'll come and get you when you need anything. But if you need anything, I'm just down here, so just holler. So I'm sitting in there, and I love cereal, so I'm just mowing like all these breakfast cereals down, having a cup of coffee and relaxing on a Saturday in Miami. It could be a lot worse, and that was a great trip. And all of a sudden, I wanted to ask the young PA where something was, and so I went to the railing, and I saw my technician like getting wires and everything, and I said, "Hey, whatever the kid's name is, down there." And I heard this yip yip yip, and I was like, "All right, well, when you get a moment, come on up and say, get up, boo." I'm like, "All right," but I couldn't hear, it was upstairs 2 levels, So all of a sudden, I get in the room with this guy, and he had Tourette's,
Oh,
and I'd never come, I didn't, he just kept going, like he would do these ticks and noises and everything. And ironically, with Parkinson's, it feels like the same thing. But what was amazing, he was the coolest guy. We talked, we got to know each other a little bit, in a short experience. And every often he might move a tick or or make a noise or something like that. But the director came in and I introduced him to the director, and the director like shook his hand, and then he did like something, and the director was just like smooth. I mean, just totally cool,
that's so
totally
great.
cool. And what amazed me is that when we got started in that commentary for 2 hours, nothing moved. I mean, he was perfect. And I I said, well, I mean, how did he goes, certain things, my focus goes completely in a position where I I am locked in. And I knew what he meant by when he said I am locked in, because there's a time in an interview when you've gotten past the fact that it's Susan Sarandon or it's Kevin Costner or it's Tom Cruise or it's a young actor, a young actress, that you forget who's sitting in front of you, because the dialogue, the thing that we're talking about, the subject takes on a new life. And when you click with them, when they, because, you know, all these folks are asked to do this 50, 60 times before a movie comes out. And they do the red carpet interviews and they do the home entertainment interviews and so on and so on. So the idea that, you know, I remembered this guy that I met in Miami that would, when he would do his thing, he was like cut, like razor sharp. And then it would be when he was reacting or when he was walking around that he would have his moments. And I thought, well, maybe I can pull this off with Parkinson's, because if I don't get real like this, you know, something like that, I can I can do it. But I started noticing that, you know, I would sit there and like parts of my body would get really rigid. Like my thighs would cramp up or my calves would cramp up. And I started thinking like, yeah, you know, it was mostly my mind talking in, you know, in a very bad way to my brain to have me live in fear. But it, the point I bring up of that story, because it's not to be demeaning or disrespectful in any way, shape, or form, but it's to show you that you cannot judge a book by its cover, period.
Period. In any way.
And this is one of those diseases where I think people are really concerned about the leather bounding or the paperback bounding or whatever, or the presentation of the book, not what's inside of it. Because you know us. I mean, you know who I am. You've known me for 25 years, but I don't look the same anymore. I don't do the same things anymore. And again, mostly that's me saying that. You've never said that.
Yeah, that's you saying that, because
I know, but it's the fear, it's the concern of like, can I be a part of society?
yes. How can I'm shocked that you think that your affliction would separate you. I know there's a lot of weird prejudices in the world, but I know what you're going through. I know, you know, I've been with you firsthand on your good days, and I've been with you on your better days, because you established last
Great days, good days, and great days.
right. No, so yes, yes, and I think what I like about what we're doing here is hopefully somebody's tuning in and learning something new about their friend with Parkinson, or the person with Parkinson's watching is going, hey, you know what? These guys are right. I can still function. You know, you tell the story about looking out the window and
Yeah,
why can't I be normal like them? And you're in a restaurant being normal like them. So it's interesting how it affects you. It's certainly nothing to be embarrassed about. I told you when I was down in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was hitting all the with a bunch of friends of mine. We were hitting the distilleries, the bourbon
oh
distilleries,
nice, yeah. I'm
and,
surprised
and
you
so
made it out of there.
it was. You start sampling at 10:30 in the morning,
Yeah,
Ken.
exactly, they're like breakfast eggs and some bourbon.
But anyway, at one of the places, it was really informal. You know, they had the women with the, you know, Daisy Dukes and the cowboy boots and hat, and it was very informal. It was in a barn, and they let you plunge your own plunger into the giant eyedropper,
Oh
and
wow.
plunge it into the barrel and bring it out, and then fill your own bottle, and they'll seal it and label it there. So all my friends are lining up and doing that. And I grab a woman who worked there, and I said, would you do me a favor? So I'm a little unsure of myself. Could you do that for me? Because I want to buy the bottle. I said, but I don't want to risk filling it. And she goes, I'd be glad to. And the guy
Yeah.
behind me, hand on my shoulder. And he says to me, why didn't I think of that? He goes, miss, could you do that for me too? I said, you're a coward too, huh? And he goes, no, I got Parkinson's. That bourbon would be all over the barrel. He goes, it'd be all over the floor, it'd be all over the barrel. And then I just said, oh my God, two of my really dear friends have Parkinson's. I want to start to do some work for a foundation. And we sat down, and he was like you. He was so upbeat. He was like, yeah, you know, the thing is, it doesn't kill you. Now you have to live with it. He was saying all those axioms that, you know, I found very endearing, you know, and he was a great guy to talk to. And I hope he tunes in and just this is Vinny saying hi from LA, but I met you in Louisville. But again, he didn't think of asking the woman. He just said, oh, this is something I can't do. And I think sometimes you do that too, and you can do it. And you've proven to me.
Sure. Well, that's just like, I think in a lot of cases, you're sitting there going, like if he's like four people in line waiting to get his hand on the little plunger thing, he's probably got run through 27 scenarios as to how he may or may not drop this thing and what should he do. Should he just pass? Maybe I won't get the burger. Maybe I'll buy one that's already sealed, whatever, and I'll forego the experience. And that is the mistake,
Yes, exactly.
because the experience of actually doing that, putting it's how they do the same thing at wineries. They barrel tasting is what they call it,
Uh-huh.
and it's that experience. It's that thing that not everybody gets to do. Like I went, to the same thing. I went to Jack Daniels and did the whole thing, on the tour with Jack Daniels and all that stuff. And that was a great experience. I was there for work. I was doing some stuff in Nashville, but the idea that we had enough time to drive out there and I had a studio representative with me who was willing to do that because they wanted to go do something while we were waiting to do the interview.
Right.
And it was amazing. And I'm like, this is what I try to tell people, is that even though you don't feel like you can do it, or you don't think that you can do it, I mean, there's things that you can no longer do, and I respect that. I'm not being flippant, but the idea of just going with the can, because the can't starts from your brain long before you're really getting
I'm
into it.
I'm sure I can only imagine the battle that it is, but I've watched you win a lot of those battles, and that guy in Louisville, he still had the same experience. The woman was real cute, and he was married, and his wife was there taking pictures of him, like with his hands on her hands while she did it for him. So that's the limitation that you said is real and it couldn't be done, but he did his version of it, and he didn't just walk
Right.
out. And that's inspiring to me. I mean, that made me go, we got to do this podcast. And again, I'll be thanking the guys from the Parkinson's Wellness Fund all the time on the show, because I just really think it's a really good idea, and I appreciate them sponsoring us. And I hope we can do something for them, get them donations. We're supposed to possibly have some guests. Um, it's kind of loose, as I said the first time. We're going to see what works. And, would there be live call in? I know we're going to do a couple of live events, at least one. So we're shaping this thing, and, the viewers can help shape it as well. And again, what does that speak to? That speaks to we're either forming a new community or just bringing an existing community in tighter and closer and hopefully smarter.
Yeah. I mean, I think community is the key word. And what Jimmy told me, I never finished this portion of the story, is that he had said to me, "Have you told everybody?" And I said, "Well, like I said, I did like a soft kind of let people know. Like what I did is I did on my Facebook page, I said I'm going to be participating in this Parkinson's Foundation movement day. It was a 5K walk or whatever it was, or 1K, I forget, 1K walk maybe." And I think most of the people are like, "Oh, that's good for you, good philanthropy," and then the other people are like, "Oh, okay, we're going to give you some money because we know we know." And so he said, "Well, you should tell everybody." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because your circle of friends will get tighter, but will be so tight around you they'll have you protected."
Oh,
And
well,
and that to me is what I've noticed over the last few years. I've had other things happen to me in the sense of, we all had the pandemic, but my business my producing entity was pretty much underwater by the time I rolled into 2018. So I was struggling financially, and my daughters were finishing up their college, and, we were just hanging on for dear life. And we got out of our house. This is a long sob story, but the point is that I had gone through a lot of this stuff, and it was so angry and so bitter and blaming everything but myself and blaming Parkinson's. And it was like, this is just garbage. I mean, I'd be out there right now producing if it wasn't for Parkinson's. Not the case. The business changed drastically. It's not the same business that we started in.
uh-huh.
So I really realized that, you can choose to be pissed off. Absolutely can. Or you can choose to look at it from, okay, this is something I got. What can I make out of it? What can I do with it? How can I serve others? How can I do something interesting? Because you can get on any numerous websites and bitch and moan about Parkinson's and talk about the shit, the ugly shit that is Parkinson's, and all the things that people don't even know Parkinson's does to your body or your internal body. But the idea of, I think it's a lot of effort to be pissed off. You got to consciously think about it. I say, I'm not talking to that guy anymore. And then the next day, I'm still not talking to that guy anymore. Well, you're obviously thinking about that guy because you're making a point of not talking to him. Whereas if you just said, I love that guy, or I'm happy, I'm having a great day. Oh, there's that guy. And then big deal. You know what I mean? You just move on.
Well,
So
there's that saying, um, uh, 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 revenge or holding a grudge is like drinking poison and hoping the other guy dies.
yeah,
So
exactly.
you're right. It takes way too much effort, and it's much easier to be nice. I mean, the first show I was wearing my "Be Kind." It's not a
Right.
hot shirt
And you got
because.
mugged on the way out of the recording studio.
What did you say?
I said you got mugged on the way out of the recording studio. They stole your Be Kind shirt.
Put your hands up.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that it just takes way too much energy to be angry. And you're shouting at a wall. You have Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Being angry is only going to affect you. And I love the fact that you talk so freely about it all the time. Makes me more comfortable to ask you questions, but also only somebody else with Parkinson's, I think, can say tell everybody. I think that's a very personal choice, and I would never tell you to tell everybody until you were ready. I happen to think that everybody should know, so that they know what they're dealing with. But if you're not comfortable sharing it yet, that's your prerogative. That's just the way I think.
Yeah.
But
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, but because community again, your
Right.
friend will, like you said, your friends will help protect you.
And to your point about not asking um, me to, like, you would never advise me to broadcast it to everybody or let everybody know. I have a very kind friend, Gary, and we went to a lot of hockey games. Thanks to him, because he had season seats at the Kings, and we were talking about Parkinson's, and he was saying something about my resume, and he goes, "If I were you, I'd put it right on the top of my resume, has Parkinson's." And he goes, "Guilt him any way you can." Or it's some funny line like that at the end. I thought, that's genius. I
That
don't know
is,
if I would have come up with that. That was just flat out funny.
yeah.
Um, but I remember the first time I thought it was interesting to possibly look at the other side of this disease, or for any ailment that you have. And you know, I was probably, I don't know, second year into it, and I was reading something on the Michael J. Fox website. It was a young guy. He was 55. So, he was probably, I was diagnosed at 46. So he was probably 7 years older than me, something like that. And he was talking to his buddy. They were on the golf course, and he was a correspondent. Somehow he did something with the Fox Foundation. But he said, and I'm going to do a terrible job at retelling this joke, but he said he and his buddy were on the golf course, and he was kind of down, and the guy, his buddy, said, "What's wrong?" He goes, I'm really scared about this Parkinson's." He's like, "I don't know how much longer I will be able to go and have a job, and I don't know if you know I don't know what's going to happen to my wife and kids, and I just feel like I really really failed." And he goes, "Dude, you got nothing to worry about." And he's like, "What do you mean I got nothing to worry about?" He goes, "You're going to make a fortune." And he goes, "Doing what?" He's all, "Being the paint shaker at Home Depot." I stole that line and opened at an event with that, and it was like crickets. That's not funny. And I'm like, sure it is, because if you don't make fun of it, and I don't mean I'm not sitting here thinking that people should do anything that doesn't suit them, but the idea of breaking it down, in other words, facing your fear. People have said this to you since you first showed your sign of fear. The idea is, well, all right, I can run off the diving board, and I remember as a kid, I used to have to you had to swim Olympic-sized laps to get your patch that allowed you to go on the diving board. And from the ground, it just looked like the coolest thing in the world. But when you're up there, it's a totally different perspective.
I'll
And
say.
I remember I'm going, well, I could just, turn around and walk back. They let me climb down, or I could just jump. And then this voice just, said, yeah, like scream, just do something silly. And then I just, and that sense of freedom, that amazing feeling coming off of a high dive is just powerful. And then you hit the water and then you're just like popped up and everybody's clapping and it was great. I mean, I love that. And, but the idea is fear can do a lot of damage. Fear and anxiety can do a lot of damage. And those two words I wish were never put together because you can find flaw in what I'm about to say because it could be done positively. But the two words that wreak a lot of havoc are what if.
Yeah.
And we ask that question all the time. But when you have a incurable disease, that's a little hard to go, what if my wife doesn't want to take care of me anymore? What if my kids don't know how to be around me or don't want to introduce and my kids and wife are not like this. I'm just using them as an example. So yeah, so community and friends and the fact that friends just call up and just like, it's way more important for me to get a phone call or a text or something like that. Hey, how you doing? It's good. I'm good now because I work out of the house as much as I live in the house. So the idea that I don't get out as much as I'd like to, I'm not housebound. I work pretty hard, and then by the end of the day, I might be a little tired out from the medication. But the idea that people can call you and make an impact on your life, and you really don't realize that until you get older. I think I think somebody who realizes that in their 30s and 40s is really an enlightened cat.
Ahead of the game, you bet.
Yeah.
So we were talking about early diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's famous. Michael talks about a tremor in his finger. Do you want to share anything about what got your attention?
Yeah, I was, and this is some name dropping, so be prepared.
Okay.
I was at the Academy Awards.
Exactly.
Legitimately, I was at the Academy Awards with Heidi, and I had produced or I supervised produced the nominee packages. So when they say Vinny DiGiulio, and then they show a clip of you, like a fast-paced clip of all those scenes that are appropriate for you from the movie that you're being nominated for Best Actor. That's what I did. So I was sitting there and I just couldn't get comfortable. Like I was just like this the whole time. Like, I was like, well, maybe I'm sitting on my wallet. I don't know what's going on. I'm in this tuxedo. Maybe I'm just uncomfortable, but could not get comfortable. And it felt like there was a little bit of tingling. So I was like, well, maybe it's restless leg syndrome. I don't know what that is, by the way, but I just heard it. And so I went and see my doctor and I was complaining about this thing. And at the same time, I went to see him. I wasn't complaining about my hip as much because it kind of dissipated, but I was complaining about this cold that I couldn't seem to shake. And so he was watching me, and as I was coughing in a pretty heavy bronchial type cough, and I was crackling and cackling. But what I was doing is, he said, I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, but he said as I was coughing, I would cough, and then my hand would get there. So my hand wasn't making the brain wasn't getting it with the urgency of the cough. You feel the cough coming, you do that kind of. I would be like, whatever. So he said, go to UCLA and rule out Parkinson's. And I remember going, Parkinson's? That's an old person's disease. And he goes, and he kind of leaned in. This guy was a great doctor. I don't know if he's retired now, but wonderful doctor. And he goes, Michael J. Fox. He knew I was like, there's three guys on my bucket list: Michael J. Fox, Bono, and Robin Williams. And Robin Williams I've met and worked with, and he's an outstanding guy. And then
Did you do Patch Adams for
I did
Universal?
Patch Adams, and I did what was the one he did for Disney? Old Dogs, and I think that was it.
Oh,
I
great.
used to
So,
go. Go ahead.
yeah, no, you got to work with him twice. I mean, I
Yeah,
was at Universal with Patch Adams, and he gave a lot to you.
yeah.
Or you derived a lot out of him. But
Well, yeah, but I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area, so we would see Robin Williams. Robin Williams was like synonymous with, comedy in the '80s in San Francisco was pretty strong. I mean, it was strong across the country, but really strong in places like the Punchline and Cobb's Comedy Club. Um, so those are my three people. Those are my bucket list people that I wanted to, to meet. And so my doctor knew that if he hit me with something that I would respect, you know, Michael J. Fox, that I would go, because I was notorious for like going, yeah, all right, I'll get that appointment done. And I'd never go because I don't really like the doctors. Nothing personal. I mean, it's just like the dentist or anybody else. So I went to UCLA and I was there for about 2 hours. And then the guy said, well, I'm going to tell you that you have Parkinson's. It's called young onset Parkinson's. And he said I could probably give you a DAT scan, but I think even if the levels came out perfect, I still can look at you by your movements that you have early onset Parkinson's. So then I just went home and I told my wife, and so started the journey of really disappearing from life. I mean, I think a lot of this and why I rise is because I want to fix a lot of things, because I mean I was persona non grata in my own world because I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and like anything that you could remotely say negative about Parkinson's, that's where I would gravitate to. So
wow,
it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna die, and then you're looking and searching for people that can pick you up, and they don't know what you need to be picked up about, so they just think you're being miserable or you're a jerk or whatever. And Heidi will say to me, that's my wife. Heidi will say to me, "Do you remember the blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Come on, you got to totally remember that. Vinny was there." But I have no recollection. I absolutely have zero. I have no frame of reference. I can't put in one frame in there and then build on that. And so, and then I tell the story because this is really kind of what changed it for me. Is Heidi was walking. I was walking out of the kitchen. Heidi was walking down the hallway from the bedroom, and she stopped me and she said, "Hey, I had this dream or vision last night that you're getting Parkinson's is supposed to be a good thing." And I was like, "Good thing? It's a bleeping death sentence." And she goes, "Yeah, you could look at it that way. Or you could find out why maybe you're supposed to be here and what you're supposed to do with it. Maybe you're supposed to teach people. Maybe you're supposed to help people. Maybe you're supposed to raise money for people," all of which I've done. And the idea was I would love nothing more than to do this, you know, every day of the week as a job. I mean, speaking and traveling and meeting people, because it's what I did in my
career,
production.
yeah,
And so it's like, how do I take those skills and twist them? And then I meet Russell and I tell Russell, I go, eventually I want to get to the point where we're taking people that are maybe at certain stage 2, stage 3 with Parkinson's, and they want to go in a hot air balloon because they used to ride them but they're afraid to go now. Or somebody was a avid water skier. We're going to put them back out on water skis because we knew these guys that could help us create an apparatus that would give people the chance to do their favorite thing one more time, and or it's a bucket list or whatever it is. But the idea that it breaks my heart, and then yet for 4 years I did it. It breaks my heart when people sift into the shadows because they have so much to offer, but it's sort of like, well, I, I mean, look at Neil Diamond. I mean, or Linda Ronstadt, or Richard Lewis, who just passed away. I mean, so many, Robin Williams, of course, but so many people that have touched so many millions of lives. And it's hard when something like that takes away from you that which you did so well.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so those concepts of hopefully growing this to experiences that came about between you and Russell, who's the founder of the Parkinson's Wellness Fund.
Yeah,
That's
his dad has had Parkinson's for a quite some time now. I don't
mm,
want to quote because I'm not sure, but we can get that from Russell. But they opened this foundation, and their whole goal is to raise money to give people the opportunity to be feeling better for themselves right now, right
mhm.
here, today. I mean, and that really stuck with me. And how I came to Russell was one of my Parkinson's community friends said you should call this guy or go to this web page and sign up, and they'll send you you fill out a questionnaire. Again, the only requirement is that you have Parkinson's, which I think you can prove with a doctor's note. And then if you need something and they can facilitate it for you, they will. And it's sort of like, I'm making this up because Russell could be much better, and he will be on this podcast to talk us about this stuff, which he thinks is totally boring. But it's like
But fascinating.
it's fascinating. And so what they did for me is I wanted to try after the pandemic and everything had really changed. I couldn't really afford to get into a lot of these boxing classes, so I wanted to get a private trainer and just work out with her, get the technique down, and then go do it on my own. And they paid for that. And the money doesn't come to me. The money goes right to the vendor. So it goes from the foundation to the vendor. There's no middle guy. There's no like, hey, Vinny, make sure you write the check when you get there. They take care of everything. And it's such a great thing because somebody's like, hey, it's great that we're working on a cure, or it's great that they're building a pickleball court for people with Parkinson's, but I need a cane. Otherwise, I'm not going to get to either one of them. And it's like, oh, good point. Yeah, okay, well, so that's where Russell's organization, Parkinson's Wellness Fund.org, comes in and blesses us with this opportunity to do this website. I mean, this podcast where we can hopefully make some people laugh a lot. And
Yes.
we're going to share a lot of stories with you as we get going through
Yeah.
all the episodes we hope to do. But it's literally it's at its infant stages, infinitesimal stages, and hopefully we will grow it. And with your help and with your support, so will the Parkinson's Wellness Fund grow. And really, we would love to do some remotes. We'd love to get out and see the world through this podcast website. I'm
That's all
too
right.
old.
No, that's all right. And I just happen to think that Parkinson's patients, no, people with Parkinson's, I'm learning, have nothing imminently bothering them. If they're obese, that could be a problem, whatever. But if the only thing is wrong with them, I hate to say wrong, but the only thing they're afflicted by is Parkinson's, perfect people to get in a hot air balloon, perfect people to, because it's probably what you're saying, their own private limitations are in their head. And by the way, that what if, it works for people without Parkinson's too. It could be,
I
what if
know.
what if my wife doesn't want to take care of me? What if my kids turn on me? You don't have to have Parkinson's to play that game. So it's not worth playing.
Well, I agree with you completely, and I also think that you know Parkinson's to me, and again, I'm not a neurologist, so take it as what it really is. But Parkinson's to me is sort of like, uh, I think the way they explained it to me was that you don't really die from Parkinson's, you die with Parkinson's. There's usually other comorbidities that accelerate, but what people notice the most because of the tremors and and the rigidity and the physical ailments is the Parkinson's. So it's sort of like, you know, if you had anxiety and depression in both of us, and there's a story. Hopefully, we'll share with you guys a story where they stuck the two of us, two guys with the anxiety, and one guy with anxiety and Parkinson's, one guy just in a what was it, a kayak,
Kayak in the ocean.
and our wives and our daughters all just took off because they knew what they were doing from the Girl Scouts, and we were like, great, stick the two lunatics. Let me do that. Take that again. Like, stick the two lunatics in the kayak and let them go out by themselves. We were like going in circles, just like going nowhere.
We didn't know what we were doing. But again, that to me, that's fodder to get, some people with Parkinson's who just say, I never thought of that. Yeah, I'd like to do that. And that would be very rewarding for me. And I think we might be coming up on time, or
Yeah, I think it's gonna kick us off in a minute. But let me just add this one point, because there's something that is so vitally important to a person with Parkinson's, especially a person with Parkinson's who might just be older or might actually be in a later stage of Parkinson's, is caregivers. And a lot of times it's the spouse or the child, or a family member. And somebody, you know, once told me that caregivers, as you can attest to, Vin, go through a hell of a lot, and they're drained emotionally, physically, mentally, however you want to do it. And there's no outlet.
no?
Everybody's focused on the patient, if you will. And I saw that firsthand with my dad, who recently had a stroke about 2.5 years ago. He's, for the most part, fully capable, except that he can't really have a conversation. He'll be in and out of the conversation. He struggles with words and phrasing. But other than that, he's like drinking his coffee, eating his pancakes and his English muffins and apple butter on it. Same thing for 50 years. But the idea of my mom at 82 thinking that she's going to take care of this man who's 84, it's ridiculous. She can't do it. She's got her own issues. And
Yeah.
so the importance of a caregiver and or family member should never go unrecognized. And I hope one of the things I've talked about to the guys here is that when we do something for a Parkinson's patient, we do something for a Parkinson's caregiver.
Yeah,
That
no,
would be very important.
it is exhausting. When I was taking care of my wife, I would not go to bed until I did everything I could in my power to make sure that day was as good as it could be. And she got to the places she needed to be, and it is. It's completely exhausting. And I had a couple of friends recognize that, which I thought was fun. Um, a couple said that they were coming over the house and they were going to bring dinner. Well, the couple showed up and there was only 2 dinners, and the wives were going to stay here because my wife wasn't very mobile. And he grabbed me and goes, "We're going drinking, and
Yeah.
we're going to eat at the bar." And I was like, "Oh, I needed this," because you need a little bit of an outlet and a little bit of a steam
Right.
blow. But
Because it's just, go ahead.
caregivers, you're right, and I like that we're saluting them, and we will continue to do that. But you are the one with the affliction, so as bad as the caregiver has the attention going to you is not misguided or misdirected. It's you need the attention as well.
True. And that's totally true. But remember that what this Parkinson's does, well, we'll talk about another episode about treatments that I'm going to that are technically non mainstream or non Western, whatever. But the idea that as I progress, I lose opportunities. Again, that's why I say take every experience as you can, because you never know when you really can no longer do it. But I think the hard part is that a caregiver misses out on many things too, because the spouse or the person with Parkinson's can't join them, and they're either feel guilty or they feel like they look, until this ends, this is where I'm going to be. And I mean, you were very frank to me and said, listen, I'm not going to be much of a friend through all this. I mean, you are my friend and I care and love you very much, but I got to do this. And so if you can't, if you don't reach me, and meanwhile I am, because I'm a neurotic maniac sometimes, I'm going, what did I say? What did I do? What's fucking, how did I piss him off? And then, yeah. And it took me like 2 calls from you, maybe 2 months, 3 months apart from each other, to go, listen, not you. I'm just dealing with this. It's really hard. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that if it's going to get to the point where you can't get out, then go out while you can.
Yeah, right.
Because if you go, well, I just don't feel good, my shoulder hurts. And by the way, these are all excuses I use on a daily basis when my wife says to me, go out and walk. But
You you walk every day. I know
well,
that.
yeah, we usually try to do at least 1.5 to 2 miles, and some days I am great, some days I am less than great. But the idea is I'm out there. And that's the whole key, is just to be out there for as long as you physically and possibly can, and do stuff that maybe you did when you were a kid, or I mean, I bowling always comes to mind. Like I always think about bowling, and I'm like, we used to do that when we were in high school, and then I just grew away from it. But the idea that the energy, the boost that it gives me when I go and I do something, when I accomplish something, because the what if, the fear, the anxiety, which was there before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's by probably 50, what am I, 58, so 56 years, maybe when I was 3 or 4. I'm kidding, of course. um but the idea that if you really let the anxiety go, it's like the anxiety goes, it's like the anxiety is waking up Parkinson's, going, hey, come on, let's just rattle the cage right now, we got some time to kill. And the idea that you get trapped in your head, and then it's like, I don't know if I can get on the plane, because what if something happens on the plane and I freeze up and nobody knows how to take care of me and I'm alone, whatever it may be. The more those thoughts increase, the less the ability to go and do something. And that's where we'll leave it, I think, tonight.
I think so, and so I agree. Let's all push ourselves just a little bit. I'm enough to step out of your comfort zone, just step back into something that you've always wanted to do, or that you did. This is why I rise. JM Kenny and Vinny,
Thanks,
and
guys. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you, and share it with your friends.
we'll be back soon. Bye.